put your hands together and welcome the one, the only, Mr. BradGosse.
I am mic'd up. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for having me. This is weird having everybody at tables. It's kind of a bizarre little setup. So thanks for having me here. I appreciate you having me. I didn't actually plan a talk today because I wanted to make sure that when I come to these things, I find that if I plan a talk, I'll plan a talk for like the affiliates in the room and then nobody else will get anything out of it, and I'll have this presentation and everybody's yawning. So what I'd like to do is take a few minutes just to do a quick talk, but then I'd like to take Q&A from the room and see if there's anything that I can actually help to deliver value to who's here, rather than me trying to figure out what you might want to hear. And to encourage that, what I'm going to do is, I'm not here to sell anything, so if you're trying to figure out what I'm selling, you're going to be lost at the end of this thing. But what I am going to do is I brought 7 copies of my book, which I'll happily sign if anybody wants them. And I'm going to give these out to people who give good questions to me. And then at the end of my talk, I don't really sell coaching anymore. And I charge 10 grand for basically 1 session a month with me for a year. And ask anybody in the room who's had a coaching session with me if I help them scale their business. Most people will tell you yes. A few people will tell you I'm a fucking tosser. There's always somebody, right? So what I'm going to do is whoever asks the absolute best question, maybe I'll pick like the top 3 and we can vote, I'm going to give you a $10,000 coaching package with me, where I'll be your advisor in your business on 12 one-hour phone calls. Is that decent? Does anybody want that? Who would want that? Okay. That works, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I thought I'd do today is, I just want to get a feel for who's in the room. How many people here have created a product already? Okay, hands down. How many of you are creating your first product? Okay, so most of you are already product creators. That's actually really good. So I'm going to tell you what I've kind of picked up in the last 6 months to a year as a product creator, and what I've kind of broken through with my advisory clients, and what I've helped them figure out in the last 6 to 12 months. Maybe this helps you to skip a few of the mistakes we made along the way. That's what I really hope. So one of the first lessons that I wanted to share with you today is I try and encourage everybody that is a product creator to think more like a CEO. So you should really be asking yourself, every time you start doing something, would the CEO of my larger company do this? How do you become your own CEO? So how many of you here do your own customer service? Be honest. Hands up. A lot of you do your own customer service. Okay. Now, be honest with me again. How many of you, and I mean, you have to love this, okay? How many of you love customer service? Nobody. Okay. That's what I thought. So, if you hate customer service, I would be willing to bet that every one of you who does your own customer service is self-sabotaging your own revenue because you hate customer service. Have you ever thought about this, right? You do a product launch, or you put something out, or you mail your list, and you always get that negative email from some asshole who's had a bad day, his wife took it out on him, and now he's taking it out on you, and it wrecks your mood. Can anybody relate to that situation? You get those emails, or even if you have a customer service person and they share those fucking stories with you, right? You're like, fuck off, don't even tell me. So if you're doing your own customer service, you may not know it. You might think you're doing it to save money. You're actually losing money, because you will prevent yourself from getting too busy with those headaches. And even if you don't know it, you'll subconsciously sabotage your own launches to prevent that shitstorm of negative. Whereas if you have someone who you pay, every week you pay them, it's your job to deal with my shit, you'll actually make it your mission to pile as much shit as you can on that person. Would you agree with that? Okay, so my first piece of advice to everyone in this room that had their hand up, Monday morning, hire a customer service person. Hire someone to do your emails, any customer communication, help desk, all that kind of stuff. If you're doing it yourself, it's going to hurt you. So I'll share another one with you. Actually, I'm going to touch on customer service one more time. For me, I took on this mentality that I have to be the CEO of my own business. And for me, customer service needs to be as simple as, I actually tell my customer service girl, I actually had to have a talk with her on Friday because she tried to share with me a story of an angry refunder, because she was just what she was trying to do is she was basically just looking for a friend to share the story with, and I had to tell her, I'm not that friend, right? Because I have to maintain my creative levels and I have to maintain a certain level of ego and a certain level of happiness to be good and creative in my business. And the minute she comes to me to say, hey, this guy bought a trial 6 months ago and now he wants all 5 months in his trial back, what should I do? Fucking ruins my day, right? So for me, I don't want to hear those stories from my people. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. So for me, customer service has come down to 2 PowerPoint slides every quarter. And that's what it should be for every one of you in this room. Customer service should be literally what percentage of people contacted the help desk versus purchased, and what percentage of people are refunding. That's it. And if those numbers change, that's when you need to get in and put some attention on it and ask your people what's going on. But outside of that, if those numbers look good every quarter, next slide. That's simple. That's all customer service should be to you. Now obviously I'm not saying that means you have a shitty customer service experience. Create an awesome experience for your customers. Make sure that they're happy and that they have a good experience when they do have a problem, but then step away from it. You know, the CEO of Walmart never works at the returns counter, right? So you need to be that CEO in everything you do. So another big lesson that I've learned recently is that none of us in this business really create a lot of assets. There's a lot of info product creation, there's a lot of software that works with today's YouTube loopholes, but when they change their pants tomorrow, the software stops working. And there's a lot of us that are creating one problem, one solution type stuff. You hear a lot of people talking about this. Oh, find this one little thing, teach it, charge $7 for it, and move on. And what I'm finding is that most of you are creating all these products, but none of you have any assets. Your products are almost obsolete 6 months later. And in fact, we've trained our customers to see that too. So I've had people buy stuff from me and then ask for a refund because, oh, I found out that this was a 2-month-old product, right? So they immediately believe that if it's like a newspaper, right? Nobody's going to pick up a week-old newspaper and nobody's going to pick up your 2-month-old info product. So everything we do is, you know, one problem, one solution, or 2 problem, 2 solution, small product, you know, relatively isolated launch, usually low price. You make some money. But then what happens, right? You split up with your partners, you split up your money, and money gets spent, and then you're like, fuck, now I gotta launch again, I'm an asshole all over again. Right? Does anybody relate to that? So, what I want you to start thinking about, and this is something, you know, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm some expert at this, I've just figured this out myself, and I kind of feel like an idiot. But what can you do in your business today that matters 5 years from now? Because I would guarantee that almost everybody in this room, and maybe I'm not judging you all, yes I am, but I would guarantee that almost everybody in this room has created most of their products with the mentality of the next 30, 60, 90 days. That's all they're thinking about. I'm going to do this product, it'll be done in 2 weeks, I'll launch 2 weeks later, I'll have a 30-day launch window, and then I'll close it down and I'll take my money and I'll run off into the night. So instead, start thinking about how you can actually create assets in your business that last forever. So I'll give you an example. I've had a full-time cartoonist on staff for over a year now, and she creates like all the cartoons that I use in my sales letters and my book and all that kind of stuff. But I had her so busy I could never actually rent her out or use her. You know, everybody comes to me and they're like, "Hey, Brad, can your cartoonist do something for me?" And I couldn't take on commission work or do any of that kind of stuff, and I didn't really want to. But recently I hired a second full-time cartoonist. It's making a lot of noise.
It's chest hair.
It's my chest hair. Awesome then. Give a round of applause for Brad's chest hair, please. I hired a second full-time cartoonist, and his only job, he's in the Philippines, so he's cheap. His only job is to shit out content. And he's shitting it out on such a level where every day, I literally was just on the toilet looking at my Dropbox, and every day he adds 50. What's that?
Has some other connotation.
Dropbox, toilet. Didn't even think about that. Okay, sorry. And I'm looking at the 50 cartoons that he did while I was sleeping. Right? Every day, this guy gives me 50 new cartoons. And so what I did was, I started putting these graphics packages together. So I don't do any of this work. All we do is give him a list of stuff to do and then walk away. So every day this guy puts in 50 cartoons, and then what I'll do is we'll have someone put together these nice little box covers, and we'll start selling bundles of these cartoons as actual asset content. So what happens is, rather than creating these info products, I have a guy who's doing graphics for me every day. Well, guess what? We've been using graphics as long as we've been advertising. And that's never going to change, right? We're always going to need fresh graphics, cartoons, stock photos, even like written content, but it doesn't have the same kind of shelf life that graphics have. And so I'm building this business. We started a website called vectortunes.com, and we've been doing a lot of ad buys on like designer type websites, and we're pulling in a lot of web designers to buy these cartoons from us. And so what happens is, yes, we're doing info products, yes, we're doing launches, yes, we're doing all that other shit, but we're also building up this big foundation of assets at the tune of like 50 cartoons a day. So that's like 1,000 a month that are coming out on a 20-day work month. Every month I'm adding 1,000 pieces of graphics to my asset collection. And those graphics will sell 5 years from now. Right? It's the only thing I can think of that I do now that I can guarantee will still sell 5 years from now. Everything else, even if it's software, is probably going to have some level of obsolescence 5 years from now. So think about that, what that is in your business. What is it that you're maybe already buying for your business creatively? It doesn't have to be graphics, but it could be some other type of asset that you're already buying from someone else that you could maybe vertically integrate and build in. So last lesson I'll give you, and then I'm going to go straight to Q&A. Hopefully you guys have some questions. Raise your prices. My good friend Anthony Aries and I just did probably the biggest launch on JVZoo in terms of actual dollars, not total front-end sales, in terms of actual dollars. But we didn't make a lot of noise. We made a little noise, but we didn't make a lot of noise because we didn't do 10,000 front-end sales. We actually only did about 1,000 sales. But our average price was over $500. So rather than doing these $7, $17, $27 launches, our minimum price was $100, our maximum price was $3,000, then we had a couple of prices in between. And what that did for us was it actually brought in, it's not my chest hair, I swear to God, it's just that. What we did was we brought in a shit ton of money. To be totally honest, did anybody here see what we did with 10millionvisitors.com? See, only a handful of you even saw it. So we did the biggest dollar launch on JVZoo ever. Nobody really noticed. So we did that without creating ridiculous amounts of customer service, right? If you bring in 10,000 customers at $17, your help desk is going to go apeshit on Monday morning. Whereas if you bring in 1,000 customers at $500, it's 10% of the work, but you've increased the dollar amount exponentially, right? So raise your prices and start trying to create products and create, not just products, 10 million visitors, I'll tell you what it was, since most of you didn't know what it was. It's actually so stupidly simple. A lot of people that I know that have been in this business for so long kind of got on the phone with me and said, I can't believe I was so stupid to miss this myself and not do this. All we did was, we took a web page, and we broke it up into hundreds of little banner spots. And we sold those banner spots, and then we bought 10 million visitors to send to that offer wall. So basically it's like buying a big piece of land and carving it up into housing lots, right? We did that with advertising, and it cost me 20 grand to send that traffic, that 10 million visitors to the wall, and I did 500, and I'll do 500 in sales by the time we're done, 500K. So for a very small ad spend, I'm able to create a lot of value for people who can't afford to have access to that many visitors normally, and give them a shot at that. So no product really, all we're doing is arbitraging, and we made that much money. So there's a lot of stuff you can do in this business that doesn't require you to create some grand idea that nobody's ever thought of, or some breakthrough thing. It could be as simple as, I'm going to buy some ads and send traffic to this place and sell the ads on this thing for more money than if I break them up. It's like the drug dealer, right? It's like, buy a big bag of weed and carve it up into little bags of weed and sell them for more money. It's that simple. Last thing I'll say, a lot of awesome speakers here this weekend, so do your best to make sure you spend as much time in here as you can listening to what they have to say. Some really good guys here like Paul Clifford and Simon, and some really smart guys here. Mark Leifert actually is going to be doing a talk here tomorrow morning in this slot. I don't care how drunk you get tonight, you need to be here at his talk tomorrow, and I'll tell you why. Mark is not going to really talk to you about how to make money. Mark's going to talk to you about the dark side of this business that nobody talks about. You'll see people saying, oh, I'll tell you how to turn a $7 buyer into a $7,000 coaching client. Mark's going to tell you how a $7,000 coaching client issues death threats. So there is a dark side of being in this business. Mark's going to really talk through that tomorrow, so I want you to make sure that you show up to his talk. But show up to everybody's, because there are a lot of smart people in this room that are going to do their talks this weekend. And I really think that for you to get the most value out of this, obviously you want to spend as much time networking as you can, but come to these talks, gather as much as you can from the speakers. If they resonate with you, reach out, introduce yourself, say, hey, you know what, I really like what you're doing. Don't pitch them on your fucking product though. Just say, hey, I really like what you're doing. Let's talk some more. Let's do some business when we get back, or whatever that might be. Reach out to people and introduce yourself. So I'm going to take how much time I have left. Does anybody here have any questions that I might be able to answer? I'll give you a book, and I'm giving away a $10,000 coaching package. Not a single question in the fucking room. Are you serious? I'm giving away 10 fucking grand. Yes.
Hi Brad, I'm Walt. All right, so
You get a book.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Already got the Kindle version. Appreciate it. Which you gave away for free. Again, appreciate that. All right, so you lose everything tomorrow.
I lose everything
You
tomorrow.
lose everything tomorrow. You lost it.
Yeah.
You're on the bones of your ass.
Yeah.
You got to come up with a product that's an asset. And 5 years from now, what do you see from an industry perspective? Where are you going to focus your energies on?
So I lose everything today. I need to create a product. I don't have any.
You've lost your Skype list. You've lost your JV partners list. You've lost your Facebook groups. You've lost the lot. You're starting bones of your ass at the library on the computer.
It sucks. I'm at the library, like homeless. Holy fuck, dude.
You're on Shit Street. You pick one source of traffic.
I think if I was that broke, I'd probably have to panhandle first. I need some hosting money. I need something to get started.
Go with it.
That's a tough question because when you have zero, you really have to think about, there's a lot of other considerations that come into play, like how am I going to fucking eat, pay my rent, and all that kind of shit.
I just gave you $2 grand.
Okay.
Now you got bootstrap.
Thank you. I have a little bit of seed money. Okay, so I have $2 grand. I think if I were starting over in this business, I would probably go for the low-hanging fruit, which is the adult niche.
Okay.
So even though
free stuff.
So I got my start in the adult industry in 1997. Spent 10 years selling porn on the internet, and then moved into this business where we teach marketers how to market to other marketers, whatever the fuck we do. And the reason why I still have property in the adult business, and the reason why I would get back into that is because it's the fastest path to massive traffic. And if you're willing to cross that line, you can still sell BizOp, you can still sell ClickBank products. The people who surf porn sites are the same people that are in this room. Right? Every one of the people in this room has some kind of porn addiction, I guarantee it. Just looking at their fucking faces, I can tell you that they have a porn addiction, right? That's why the internet's so slow in this hotel. Everybody's flushing the toilet at the same time. So what I would do is I would capitalize on that. I would find, because here's the thing, there are always models who need money and people who want to look at them naked, right? Or semi-naked or whatever it might be. So I would probably go that road because it is the fastest path to building up some traffic. If you have pictures of scantily clad women or men on the internet, you're going to get traffic. People are going to go and look at those, and it's the easiest way to generate it. So if I were starting over, I would probably dip my toe back into that niche first because you can still make money. What a lot of people don't realize is that if you're selling business opportunities or fitness products or whatever the case may be, almost everything sells to porn audiences, right? It's how does the saying go? Not everyone who uses toothpaste watches porn, but everyone who watches porn uses toothpaste, right? So if you're selling something, whatever it is, and you can market it to that porn watching audience, you'll have the cheapest traffic money can buy, and you'll have a scalable traffic source that nobody else has access to. YouPorn.com gets 60 million visitors a day. Every day, 60 million people go to YouPorn.com to watch free porn. So when you see ads next to those videos or pop-unders on that website or whatever it might be, those spots, you're nodding your head. Did I get the number wrong, or? No, this guy back here. Is it 60 million a month?
No, shaking my head.
Oh, you're shaking your head.
Disgusting.
I'm pretty sure it's 60 million visitors a day. So imagine having access, like, if you go to Facebook and you try and put your ad in front of 60 million visitors, you're going to go broke fast, and you're probably not going to make a lot of money. Whereas if you go to a porn audience, those same eyeballs, they're on Facebook, a half hour ago. Now they're on YouPorn, but their eyeballs are cheaper now that they're on YouPorn. Why? Because the advertisers there, like not the same advertisers that go to Facebook will go to YouPorn. But if you're willing to cross that line, I'll give you an example. I have a client who's in the fitness space, and we came up with this idea for how he could basically break into the porn market selling stuff to guys. And so he came up with this product idea called Bitch Tit Blaster. Right? So, you guys all know what bitch tits is? Is that a North American expression? Nobody's got their hand up. Okay. So in North America, bitch tits is when a guy has a girl's breasts, right? He's so fat that he's got tits. Okay? He's got fat tits. So in North America, the term is bitch. Oh, he's got the bitch tits going, right? So he created this whole product around bitch tits, and he has this banner that just has a cartoon guy with tits, and it says bitch tits with a big question mark, click here, right? And he pulls so much business out of porn traffic because guys who are going to those websites are still conscious about their weight. They're still, they're on a porn site because they're not getting laid, right? So maybe it's the bitch tits. Maybe it's your flabby ass. Maybe it's your abs. Maybe it's something. Maybe it's your confidence levels. Maybe it's something else. If you're willing to cross that line and jump into that traffic source, you can make a buttload of money if you can figure out how to connect with that audience. So that's where I would go. If you gave me $2,000 to say start over again, I may not be selling porn, but I would at least be selling to the porn user, because they're the cheapest traffic money can buy, or some of the cheapest traffic money can buy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'd love to go into more about scalable traffic and paid traffic, and so I'll let somebody else have a shot and we'll come back to it.
Scalable traffic, paid traffic. Happy to talk about that. Anybody else with a question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Louder. Stand up, sir.
Take your shirt off.
Apart from your own book, what would you recommend for anyone looking to get into marketing or start their own business or something like that? What would be your number one book?
My number one book. Number one book. I'm just trying to think here. It's hard to pick one. Anything from Malcolm Gladwell, I would highly recommend. Most of you have probably already read his shit, The Tipping Point, and What the Dog Saw. Some of those books, they really help you to think differently. Seth Godin, another one. I can't even pick one. So those are the two authors I would probably start with if I were going to recommend books. Next, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to outsource, how do you go about it?
Great question. So the question was regarding outsourcing. There's really two ways to do this, and I did it the first way by making the mistake of going to like easyoutsource.com and hiring one of these people direct in the Philippines. And my first cartoonist, I'll give you an example. My first cartoonist who did all the cartoons in my book. You get a book, by the way. So you want to just pass that back for me. What? Oh yeah, you get a book. Come and get it. Don't make me fucking walk all the way back there. This guy had like 9 beers last night. I'm surprised he even made it. So.
It was more than 9 by the end. By the time I left you, it was 9 beers.
So I made the mistake of hiring direct in the Philippines and trying to manage my own employee, which is a fucking nightmare, right? It's like herding cats, this fucking job, right? So if I had it to do all over again, and in fact I'm doing it all over again now, and if anybody wants access, I'm not going to say it out loud because it's not a best kept secret, but I don't want like everybody calling this guy on Monday morning. So I have a project manager in the Philippines who is it's a husband and wife team from Canada that moved down there and opened up an office, and they have a whole staff in their office. That's where I hired my new cartoonist, and that's where I'm going to hire my new designer as well. And they manage that staff. So rather than paying, so my first cartoonist cost me $400 a month. My second one is closer to $1,200 a month. But he also produces way more than the dollars pay for. And what happens is, when you communicate with someone in the Philippines, right, the labor's cheap, but the communication isn't always perfect, right? So you'll say you want something, and they'll produce something completely different, and a lot of the time you'll be banging your head against the wall. And the thing is that they're on a completely different time zone to us, so when you get up, they're finishing, right?
My sister's Filipino anyway, her sister-in-law is Filipino anyway, so.
Okay. But I deal with a company now that project manages for me. So I fill in project requests, and the worker goes and does his work. But if he fucks it up, I get on the phone with the Canadian guy and I'm like, hey, he didn't understand what I wanted. Here's what I wanted. Do you get it? And he says yes. I'll tell him, and then he stands over him the next morning to make sure it's perfect. So the extra money gets you a English-speaking liaison that you can work with. To me, that makes, especially if you're a small solopreneur and you don't have a lot of time to spin plates and manage people, you're better off to pay the extra. You'll get, the output will be by a factor of 10. And you won't get any of this, I couldn't work today because I had to go banana picking bullshit, right? That I seem to get a lot of the time from the lower priced outsourcers. If anybody, I guess I heard some laughs. Somebody heard that story before? Yes?
How do you decide which things you want to outsource for a given project?
How do you decide what to outsource and what to do yourself?
Yeah.
If you hate it, outsource it. If you can't do it, outsource it. If you don't know it, outsource it.
What about,
If you just don't want to fucking do it, outsource it.
what about getting the ideas? Do you outsource them also?
We can't outsource ideas. You gotta be the idea guy, right? Nobody you pay a cheap hourly rate is gonna be like, hey, here's all these awesome ideas, go run, right? You're the intellectual capital in your business, and the people that you, your partners, the people you bring in, the rest of it all comes down to, the labor that needs to be done and the division of that labor. That's what you outsource.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Which tool or which software in your toolkit would you say gives you the best return?
Software that gives me the best return. Okay. I'm going to say something that you probably, have you ever heard of FileMaker Pro? Who here's heard of FileMaker Pro? Okay. Anybody love FileMaker Pro as much as I do? We're going to be friends, you and me. We're going to get along just fine. So, if you've never heard of FileMaker Pro, go get a fucking trial to this software. It is the best. This is not an internet marketing software, it's database software. But I literally have used FileMaker Pro as far back as when Mark and I were friends in the old days in the adult business. And I remember Mark and I used to do this thing called build feeder sites. And it was a competition to see who could build the most feeder sites. And we had staff back then just shitting out websites, like just coding and building websites all day. And I remember Mark calling me one day and saying, "Oh man, I got a piece of software that does that now." I do a terrible fucking English accent. I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. Please forgive me. He told me he had a piece of software that does it. I'm like, you fucking bastard! I've got laborers doing it. And so I got off the phone with him, and I'm a FileMaker Pro database developer, so I know FileMaker Pro backwards and forwards. I'm like, I could fucking build one of these in FileMaker Pro. And in a day, I built an entire system in FileMaker Pro that shits out 250 websites every hour. Like, just like that. I still use FileMaker Pro today almost every day in my business. I use it to create WordPress installations. I use it to create, I use it to track data. I use it for all kinds of stuff. And if I were down to one piece of software, that would be the app that I use. So probably not the answer most people would look for, but it's actually one of the best pieces of software out there. In fact, one month I had FileMaker Pro working so hard making websites, I really pissed my employees off. I would never do this again. I'll tell you, this is funny. So I had a staff of 6, and I took the box for FileMaker Pro, and I framed it, and I put Employee of the Month on it, and I stuck it up on the wall. Morale was not great that month in my office. So yeah, FileMaker Pro.
I appreciate that.
And you get a book.
Thank you.
I have a question too.
Yes.
If I may ask, from your coaching and the feedback and everything that you got, could you give a couple examples of the most common errors that wannabes make?
Most common errors that wannabes make. I like that you said wannabes and not newbies, because there's a difference.
Yes.
So, does anybody here know the difference between a wannabe and a newbie? Okay. So there are a lot. This business is there's kind of 3 types of people in this business. There's the wannabe, there's the newbie, and then there's the bee, right? So you're either in the bee mode where you're generating money, you're creating products, or you're in the newbie mode where you're trying to figure it all out and you're going to get there, or you're in the wannabe mode where you have a full-time job and you're really just here because this looks really cool and you want to think about fantasizing in this business, but you never actually cross over. So when I try not to coach wannabes because I find that they don't get anywhere for the most part. So I try to avoid them. Now there are obviously in every category there are people who break out and cross those barriers, and I've seen that happen, hundreds of times. I mean, I remember, there's a couple people in this room I first started with who have had day jobs who now make 7 figures a year. So that can happen, but it's a lot harder to cross. So the biggest mistake that a wannabe makes is that usually they'll have some other income source that feeds them, right? So either they're supported by a family member or they have a job and they have some other kind of money coming in. And that money is just enough to sustain them. And unfortunately, that money makes them lazy and complacent. And so they don't actually ever get out of that little rut, even though they have all the tools and all the ideas and everything dropped in front of them. I've literally got on coaching clients with people who, I gave them, I'm like, here's a product I need made. Just here, go get this coded and I'll help you sell it because it's an awesome idea. And I give them everything. I'll help them with their wireframing, I'll help them with everything. But as soon as I walk away, they lose focus and they don't do it. So I would say the biggest mistake that someone makes who hasn't crossed over into actually being a full-time marketer yet is they rely too much on what's feeding them now, and they're not hungry enough to break that barrier. So I would say it's a lack of focus and a lack of hunger, and it usually comes from having an outside income source that pays the bills already. And it's even if you're living at poverty, you've somehow grown accustomed to that, and it's very hard to break out of that. It's like if that went away and you had to pay rent, then you would take action. But because someone's paying your rent, somehow your rent is being paid. As humans, we have this feeling of fullness, right? And it comes from money and it comes from food. So if I feed you a whole bunch of food right now, and then I take you grocery shopping, you're not going to want to buy anything, right? So the same thing happens with money, right? If you have just enough to pay your bills, you may think you want more, but you're not hungry for it, so you don't actually do it. That's the biggest mistake. You get a book. I'm seeing more hands up. In the back, Carl. Louder.
You started.
Yeah.
Started off, not a one bit, but a new bit. And you wanted to create the best IT item that you could back end, similar to what you've done with Anthony, obviously, as a company. But obviously not that product, I'm saying, the best one that you can. What would you?
Sorry, what was the question? Narrow it down for me.
How would you create a decent back end if you're a newbie?
How would you create a piece of...
$500 product, or as a,
How do you create a $500 product on a back end as a newbie?
Yeah.
What would you create?
Thank you. Yeah, so you haven't got much experience, you haven't got, say, I made $6 million in 4 minutes. So people aren't going to look at you and say, oh, I can't follow this example. So how could you put a product together that people would buy, that would be useful and valuable to people, and you could charge a decent amount of money for it? What would you do? Where would you go?
That's a tough question. Mainly because we're focused too much on the dollar amount and the product, and not necessarily on who I am, who the customer is, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I can answer that question that easily. I don't want to be like just giving you a blanket answer to that, but it's like I think if you're new, I think you could totally pull off a $500 product, but I don't think it would be an info product. I think it would have to be, okay, I'll answer your question. If you're going to sell a product that's north of even $100, it should have more value than just information. Because we live in an information age where, pretty much everything we sell can be found for free already, right? But people just don't want to weed through the bullshit to find it, so they'll pay you for the distilled information, but they're not going to pay you $500 for distilled information anymore. And I'm not saying that you can't sell info for $500, I don't want to be that guy. But if you're going to go to that level, I think the best level is done for you. Done for you websites, done for you newsletters, like not PLR, but like we have people that do this for you, or we have software that does this for you. So one of the products we sold really successfully last year was called Drip Blogs, where we created these done-for-you auto blogs, and we had software that created them, and each one was unique as it was created. We weren't actually sitting there with coders cranking out websites. And it was a $47 product on the front end, and in order to make money on the back, what we did was we said, well, we have this $47 done-for-you product on the front. What if we just sold more of it on the back? Because it's a done-for-you service, right? It's not an info product. The customer will buy 50 blogs on the back for 500 bucks, right? Just as easily as he'll buy one for 47. So sometimes if you're doing done-for-you type stuff where it is scalable, where someone can actually buy multiples of the same thing from you, then that becomes your upsell. Your upsell is just more at a discount, right? It's like the old printer, right? It's like you get 1,000 business cards for 100 bucks, or you get 10,000 for 120, right? So you want to be able to, if you want to go that road, that's the road I would go. I would go with some kind of done-for-you product or service. You're welcome. I'll get you a book. The lady, yes.
How perfect does a product have to be to sell it?
How perfect does a product have to be to sell it?
If it's too perfect, it's taking too long.
Yeah, I don't believe that anything can be perfect.
Very different answer.
I don't think anything can be perfect, and I think how perfect is really just a question of how much time do you want to spend fussing around the product, right? If you were to ask Bill Gates that question, he would say, just put it in a fucking box and ship it and update it later, right? Does anybody agree with that? Right? So let me give you an example. I do a lot of my products, I do a lot of launches where the product's not even fucking done, right? I'll do it like this 10 million visitor launch that we did is a perfect example. We started selling on February 15th, and we finished selling on March 15th, and we haven't put a single advertisement up yet. We're just taking pre-orders for the ad wall that goes live on the 15th, right? When I launched it, I didn't know if the internet marketing community was even going to love what I did. So I didn't build a back-end CMS or anything because I knew I had 30 days. And I know I have a team of monkeys that can shit out pretty much anything I need to do when I need to do it. So before even building it, the back end, I didn't even have it done. I just put it out there to see if it would sell because I could always close it down and give everyone their money back and say, sorry, this didn't work, right? So I would say that your product doesn't even, depending on what you're selling, your product, unless it's an instant downloadable, doesn't even have to be done the day you sell it. Another example, we did that with drip blogs. When we took the first drip blogs orders, we didn't know if anybody was going to buy. I didn't know if 10 people were going to buy them or 10,000. And so rather than build this whole software system, I quickly coded something up in FileMaker Pro, gave it to my employee and had her hand do the websites. It took her about a half an hour for each website, so we weren't making a lot of money on it, selling them at $47, but we took the money that we made from the launch and gave it all to a programmer and said, build us a system that shits out these websites for us automatically, right? And then we scaled that and we did more launches on the same platform in different niches, and we built it out to like $1 million business. So, does that answer your question?
Sort of. Is it how perfect does the market demand it to be? I mean, even if it's a PDF, like in Word, where it's not perfect English, how much should you go down to make sure it's perfect?
It doesn't have to be perfect English. It doesn't have to be perfect anything. It just has to convey whatever it is. As long as the end user who gets your product gets the message that you wanted to get across, everything else is irrelevant. Doesn't matter if the PDF's ugly. Of course, it helps if it's pretty, right? Of course, it helps if the English is perfect. All that stuff helps. But like, I will actually, I'll create a report sometimes where I use, does anybody here use dictation software? I use dictation software to make my words come out faster because I have verbal diarrhea, but I can't type to save my life. So I'll sit at the computer and I'll talk out an entire report. I'll speak it into the computer. And then sometimes I'll put it out and I'll start selling it. And like 500 copies in, someone will say, hey, did you notice you completely misworded this entire paragraph? And then I'll go in and fix it and update it. So I'm not saying that you want to put out half-assed products, but again, that product, those reports that I do, my idea conveys, it gets across to the end user. Maybe there's some miscommunication in the dictation software where a word sounded differently to the software and it put out whatever instead of whatever. Who cares, right? If 80% or 90% of your idea is distillable to the buyer, all they're gonna do is they're gonna take that idea and go take action, right? So perfect English, none of that stuff matters, and you can always update on the fly.
Integrity.
Yes.
What percentage of your products are your own and what percentage is JV? And which one do you prefer?
What percentage of my products are my own and what percent are JV? Now, when you say JV, do you mean like people I partner with on actual products or affiliate promotions that I do? Okay. For me, it's easiest to break it down in terms of dollars. I would say about 70 to 75% of my money comes from my own stuff. I'm my own best affiliate, and I've always been that way from the start. Everything I do, of course I love JV partners, thank you all for promoting my shit, but I don't want to ever count on them because you can do a launch and everybody is your best friend. They're like, oh yeah, dude, I got your back, I'm going to mail that fucking shit for you, and then on launch day it's crickets. You're like, what the fuck happened? Oh, well, you know, Dr. Dickhead did a fucking launch and I decided to promote that instead or whatever, right? Sorry, Dr. Dickhead. So you can't count on your JV partners, even when they're your best fucking friends. They'll turn their back on you like that for a better converting product. If the EPCs on your product are lower than someone else's, you're yesterday's news. So if you can't count on your own paid traffic, your own list, and your own people to buy your products, you're going to have a hard time in this business. So you need to always be your own best affiliate. I'll give you an example. When I launched my book, I wanted to be a bestseller on Amazon, and I didn't think, because Amazon pays 6% commission, I didn't think I was going to get a single JV partner to mail it other than my buddy Mark in the back and Paul Clifford and a few people that I know have my back. Simon took good care of me. Thank you, Simon. So what I did was, months in advance, I was doing Facebook media buys and building this massive list of potheads. Right? I literally targeted potheads on Facebook, and I bought thousands and thousands of dollars worth of advertising, and I put thousands and thousands of leads into a funnel where I was giving them, I actually gave them some PLR stuff just to keep them happy, but I branded it with my cartoons and made it fun and fancy and that kind of thing. So that when I launched my book, even if every JV partner who promised to have my back said, go fuck yourself, Dr. Dickhead did a launch on your book launch day, I would still be a best-selling author without their help. But the fact that I got their help put me to number 40 on the absolute top Amazon list, and the number 1 in the movers and shakers and everything else in the same day, because I had the trifecta. I had all the JV partners pushing me, and I counted on my own affiliate, on my own best traffic. So I'd say for me it's about 75%. For most people that number might be lower, but I've always been my own best affiliate, and I think everyone in this room should have that credo as well.
Can you tell me the dictation software that you use?
I use Dragon Dictate. Yes?
If you had to get in front of the affluent market, where would you?
Get in front of the affluent market?
Yeah. In the internet market.
In which market?
Internet market.
Internet marketing to affluent people? I don't know that affluent people buy internet marketing stuff. What are you selling? Like, are you selling products or are you selling services?
No, probably high-ticket coaching.
High-ticket coaching, okay. So yeah, that probably would work to that market. I think you've got to have a funnel in place, and I think you have to watch out who you talk to. A lot of it comes down to language. So a lot of people in this room, when they write sales copy, they talk to Johnny Lunchbucket. They tell you they're going to help you quit your job, and they're going to help you, be financially free and all that kind of stuff. The affluent market doesn't listen to that language. And a lot of people, what they do is they make low income promises. So they'll be like, learn how to make $5,000 a month. Well, an affluent person is like, fuck that, I need 20 times that to make ends meet or whatever. So you need to watch the language that you use when you speak to the affluent market. You have to talk to them in a different language than you would talk to a $7 product buyer. But I also do believe, to just kind of spin your question a little bit, I do also believe that when you sell to that $7 product buyer, if you tell them they're going to quit their job and all that shit, you're actually sabotaging your numbers, because you're eliminating the full-time entrepreneur from your sales letters when you start saying, I'm going to help you quit your job, or job crusher or whatever. You're going to do some kind of job whatever product. You're going after that market, and you're completely ignoring everyone in between, the affluent and the day job guy. So I believe that even if you're selling to that, if that's your market, you should still speak to them as if they're already full-time entrepreneurs and as if they're already successful. Because what happens is, when you talk to someone and you say, I'm going to help you quit your job, the entrepreneurs ignore you. But when you talk to the entrepreneurs, the guy with the day job hangs off every word. That make sense?
Yeah, but what's the traffic source? What's the advertising media you use?
So I don't know that I would necessarily go straight to an affluent market with a cold sell. I would probably try and funnel the affluent people out of my list and out of a bigger pool of buyers. I would, and usually I do that with graduated pricing. So it's like, you know, if you have, like I have sales funnels that go up as high as 20K coaching packages, and I have people that buy those. I separate them out from the herd by just putting them in a funnel where there's higher and higher pricing, and the guys that take those numbers, now I know who my affluent clients are. So I don't know that there's like a traffic source where you can go and catch the affluent market, right? Because the reality is that the types of websites that traditionally you would think of would be like luxury type sites, Rob Report type sites. Those are all the broke guys reading Rob Report, right? They're not, you know, it's not usually the affluent market that's buying into that kind of traffic or buying into that kind of content. So I think you have to create a funnel that pulls those people up. Yes.
Brad, how important do you think testing is in your business, and what's the best win you've had by implementing a decent test?
I think that testing is probably the most important thing in this business, and if you're not testing, you're probably losing a shit ton of money. You have no idea how much money you're leaving on the table. So I test everything, and I'm willing to lose money in that process, and I think that's where a lot of people fuck up is they're afraid to turn on the fire hose and lose money for a day or two just to see where the numbers land. So I just did a campaign to web designers, and my copywriter went apeshit because I basically just went into Facebook and spent $1,500. I turned on the fire hose, I spent $1 a click, and I sent like 1,500 visitors to an opt-in page, and I got 0 opt-ins. So, but the point is that $1,500 wasn't, I didn't spend that to make my money back. I spent that to learn about my audience and to learn how they were going to engage with my product and find out that none of them fucking want it. But by doing that, if that test were successful, and a lot of the times I'll do those tests, I'll turn on that fire hose and I'll spend $1,500 and I'll make $500 back, right? Then I know I'm onto something. Now I know if I narrow in on that and start targeting and testing that I can turn 500 into 1,500. It might take a few more kicks at the can, but I will get there. So I think, you know, testing is something that a lot of us don't put enough time into, and I'm not just talking about multivariant headline testing or button color testing. You've got to do that stuff too, but you have to be willing to spend a little bit too much on your traffic just to see how it's going to interact with things and how it's going to play out before you start testing even headlines, any of that kind of stuff. You really just need to throw a whole bunch of traffic at whatever it is that you're doing and see how they interact with your funnel, make course corrections on the fly, and then keep doing that. Then you can implement split testing when you start to narrow in your targeting. So I think it's the most important thing in this business. If you're not testing, you're not watching your numbers, you're probably just, you know, playing around in this business. You're not really serious about it. In fact, I've been in conferences where guys who are doing entire talks about split testing will say, show of hands, who here in the room does any split testing? Okay, so it's actually pretty good numbers, about 40% of you doing your split testing. You'll notice that the people who put their hands up are most of the top income earners. So if you do a lot of split testing, chances are you know your numbers better than the average, and by doing all that testing, you figured out what works and what doesn't, and you can scale faster. So if you're not testing, awesome lesson, you should be. Yes?
How would you sell more and more high-ticket coaching programs without any more workflow for yourself?
How do you sell more high-ticket coaching packages without?
And getting shit all the work for yourself.
So let me preface this by saying I don't think you can sell coaching in such a way. I see people making this mistake a lot where they try and sell high-ticket coaching and then they stick everyone in a fucking webinar every week, and that just pisses off the customer. So I think if you're going to sell coaching, you got to be prepared to give up some hours. So you have to make that, whatever that offer is, it has to make sense for you to give up an hour for every hour that you're paid for. And if it doesn't, then you're not selling it for enough money.
Would you limit it for say 90 days, or you would do it ongoing coaching?
It's up to you how you limit it. But for me, I'll tell you how I do my coaching. I only do coaching calls on Wednesdays. What's that?
8 hours on Wednesday, or just specific hours?
From 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, I do 7 coaching calls every Wednesday, and that's it. Maximum 7, sometimes less. But I don't do coaching any other day of the week, unless it's for someone who really needs my help. You know, that I like, and we trust each other. And you know, if they need something in between, it's very rare. But I always limit it to Wednesdays, and the reason being is that I don't want to be a full-time coach, right? I don't want to, like, now you're in the business of helping other people make money, but you don't really have your own product. You're just a coach, right? I don't even like the word coach because it feels like, rah, 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 go fucking get him. Like, I like the word advisor more than I like the word coach. In fact, I'm kind of phasing the word coaching out of my business and trying to change it to advisor because I feel like I personally would never pay a coach. Because when I hear the word coach, I think sports coach. I think some dude fucking yelling at me when I'm trying to swim or whatever, right? So you need to sell it for whatever it is you need to sell it for to cover those 7 hours every Wednesday. For me, that's how it works because it allows me to be creative all the rest of the week. Wednesday's one of those days you can kind of give up, right? Nobody really thinks about Wednesday. So it's like people will make your appointments with you on Wednesday and they'll show up and you can do coaching calls all Wednesday. And I'll tell you what, dude, at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. It's probably the hardest work I do is coaching because I actually do, ask anyone, I actually get invested in what they're doing and I really do take it on as if it's my own and help them figure out how to scale and how to build that up. To do that effectively, I couldn't do that 40 hours a week. I wouldn't be doing anybody a good service because if I was drained at the end of every day, then the next morning, whoever had me the next morning would be fucked, right? So rather than do that, I would coach all day Wednesday and I literally, at 5 o'clock I shut down and I completely decompress. I'll go in my hot tub, I'll go watch TV, like I'll completely ignore my work for that day. And then the next day, I'll usually start late in the day, like Thursday morning, I'll have a slow start to the morning, give myself the opportunity to get my own energy levels back, and then I'll get into my own creative projects. But I think if you're at someone else's service every hour of the day, you're gonna fuck yourself and all your clients. Yes?
In your successful launch, what kind of launch format do you use in terms of giving commissions to affiliates and stuff like that?
My most successful launch is the one I'm right in the middle of right now. Because my business is not launch centric. So successful launch to me isn't necessarily the biggest part of my business. So I do maybe 4 launches a year. And I'm not a launch guy, so I don't bring a lot of excitement to my launches the way a lot of other people do. My most successful one is the one I've done right now. It's a 10 million visitors launch. I gave 50% to the affiliate on everything. And it's the most successful because it was one of the higher ticket items that we've done. And we were the first people to kind of really do a launch where rather than selling you a how to get traffic, we're selling you actual traffic. So that's my most successful launch, the one I'm in the middle of.
What kind of back end would you place except coaching and return sales?
On that particular item, the back end is what I just kind of explained earlier. I have on the front end, I have $100, $250, and $400 price options, and then on the back end, I have an option to buy 10 of the $400 ad spots for $3,000. Yeah, more for less, right? And then I don't actually have any coaching on the back end of that because I'm kind of phasing out my selling of coaching and that kind of stuff. So it's just mainly because I've already I'm almost at that fill point on every Wednesday, and I don't want to like overload the Wednesday. So I've kind of scaled back on coaching just for that personal reason that I don't want to sell it. But I could put it in the back end, and if I was going to do it, like I'll give you an example. Anthony Aries and I did a webinar in first week of December, where my webinar formula is simple. Teach people long division and then sell them a calculator at the end. It's that simple. So I did this webinar where actually, the funny thing is we did this webinar in December where we laid out the exact strategy that we just did on this launch. And we gave over 300 people over 200 people on the webinar the opportunity to go and run with this idea themselves, and nobody fucking did it. So then we did it, and we made we'll make $500,000 in the process. So we gave the idea to over 200 people and nobody did it. But we gave it to them, we laid out the entire, you know what I mean? Like, that's the business we're in, right?
It's a good job I wasn't on that call.
Yeah, it is too bad. I'm glad you weren't on that call. So, and then what we did was, so we did this webinar all about paid traffic. And then on the back, in like 10 minutes, we sold a coaching package where it was basically, hey, all this cool stuff we showed you, if you need someone to bounce your stuff off of before you go live, and most people who have never done paid advertising want that, that's what we sold on the back end. It was like, here's how you can do it all yourself, and if you want an advisor in your corner, here's the price. And we did over 100K on that webinar, and we didn't share any of that with our affiliates, because we gave away 100% on the front end of that launch, and so that's how we made our money on the back. So if I was going to sell coaching again, that's how I would do it. I would do a webinar where I literally teach them the whole fucking thing, and then offer to basically just be in their corner on the back. It's the easiest way to sell it too, because you don't have to, you're not selling the coaching. You're not like, I'm awesome and I'm going to do this for you and this for you and this for you. Like, you don't want to be that kind of a coach where you're like selling yourself. You want to be the kind of coach where you're giving so much value in a webinar that on the back, when you just say, by the way, I've got room for a couple of people. If you want to tap me for knowledge once in a while, I'm here. If it's not for you, awesome. Hopefully you can just run with this. You'll sell it way better than if you try and sell yourself really hard. Yes?
How important is SEO versus paid traffic to you at the moment?
SEO versus paid traffic. Really good question. SEO means nothing to me. Main reason being, most people know in this room, I was #1 for porn on Google for 18 months, #1, #2 for porn on Google, and then they slapped me in the ass really hard. And I was actually here in the UK when it happened. I was at a concert, and I got a text from my host saying, you're number 117 today on Google, and my traffic dropped to 0. Not 0, but from 250,000 visitors a day to 10,000 visitors a day, which just destroyed that business. So I believe if you live by the Google, you will die by the Google. I also have discovered something. Google, I think this in a nutshell is probably the best SEO strategy anybody in this room can follow. Ignore Google. Seriously, it's the hardest thing for people who are in SEO to do, right? They're like, oh, how's Google going to like this page? Who fucking cares? How's the customer going to like it? When you're doing paid traffic, you never even think about Google. And what I've discovered is, when I focus on how do I build a business with Google over here, they can go fuck themselves. Okay? And when I do that, what happens is Google notices and they pay attention and they give me more traffic than I ever expected because I'm getting traffic in the real world. And that's actually what Google wants you to do. The whole reason why link building, quote unquote, I fucking hate the term link building, but the reason why link building worked so well, I don't think it works as well, but the reason why it worked so well is because the Google algorithm is trained to look for people who are generating their own traffic. The problem is that people started building links for the purpose of building links, right? So now they're not building traffic anymore, they're building links. If you get into a traffic building strategy instead of a link building strategy, you can ignore Google, but they won't ignore you. Hope that helps. Anybody else? Okay, I think I'm out of time anyway, right? One more question. Yes, you can. You get the last one since you asked for it. Uh-oh. I'll get you one, I promise.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, Mr. BradGosse, everybody!
Okay. Simon, I'm giving away a 10K coaching package to someone. I got a mic. So I did promise a $10,000 coaching package, so I didn't want to walk away and be like, fuck you! Does anybody want to decide who deserves that coaching package? Out of any, put your hand up if you ask me a question. Wait a minute. Okay. Now, put your hand down if you don't think you even need my coaching. Okay. Stand up if you think you need. If you ask a question, you think you need my coaching. Just stand up. Okay. How do we do this, Simon? How do we pick the right guy here? I want to be biased here and pick the lady. That's what I always do. I always pick the chick.
No, names in the hat.
Yes, names in the hat. We'll do it tonight at the show.
Names in the hat.
Great idea. Okay, so we're going to put all your names in a hat, and Simon's going to draw whoever wins the 10K coaching package tonight. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay.
Once again, Mr. BradGosse, everyone.